What up, y'all? Miles Best here, journalist, host, and matcha lover. Miles with an I? Come on, bro. In the UK, they have tea time. In Italia, they have after dinner espresso. And here in the US, we might as well be on IV drips of coffee. What do all these have in common? They all contain major amounts of caffeine. And while I'm not a big coffee or caffeine guy, I do partake in the occasional matcha latte. I'm kind of a rebel. According to author Michael Pollan, 90% of adults in the world consume some form of caffeine on the daily, which makes it the world's most actively used psychoactive drug. Don't worry, we'll define that later. But depending on the headline you read, caffeine can either be a miracle drug for the modern day worker or student, or it's viewed as an anxiety-inducing poison that can only be described with the same vitriol that J. Jonah Jameson uses when writing pieces on Spider-Man.
He's a criminal, that's who he is. A vigilante, a public menace.
Despite all this conflicting info, caffeine remains incredibly popular. So today, we're diving deep and asking, is caffeine good or bad for you? So for this episode, I'm going to tag in our resident caffeined Vincent. He wrote that joke, by the way, not me.
All right, we're rolling?
Rolling.
It seems like nowadays there's caffeine for everyone. I mean, you have energy drinks, caffeine pills, and even caffeinated chocolate bars. No chance for golden tickets, just guaranteed energy and anxiety. Well, let's be real, nothing compares to my baby, coffee, which is what we'll be focusing on this episode. Many cultures actually use the coffee bean as a medicine, mostly to cure the sleepies and help with heart health. Then the 1400s hit and humanity made the most important discovery of all time.
Coffee.
Move over, modern medicine, cars, and democracy. For real though, all of those things previously listed may not have come to be without it. For example, both the American and French revolutions were planned in coffee houses, and the Industrial Revolution was fueled by coal, child labor, and caffeine. That child labor also most likely caffeinated.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad!
Long excruciating workdays and workloads were some of the major reasons why coffee became so popular during the Industrial Revolution. Like, really popular. There were over 3,000 coffee houses in London at the time. I mean, how would you expect someone to survive 12 to 16-hour workdays 6 days a week unless they're literally on stimulants? Alright, I swear, I won't become dependent on the coffee or the caffeine. Well, good luck, buddy. Yeah, this isn't the Industrial Revolution, but coffee and caffeine use is ingrained and reinforced by our work culture. It's the reason we even get paid mandatory breaks. After World War II, there was a surge of women in the workforce, and this one factory owner noticed that his workers were getting more tired towards the end of the day. So he offered them 2 breaks a day to have a coffee or a soda, and quickly noticed that productivity shot up. So he was like, boom, y'all are now required to take those breaks. But these are breaks, so I'm not paying you for them. Then the government stepped in and said, you have to pay these people. When the boss refused, the case went to the federal district courts, and paid coffee breaks ended up becoming codified into labor laws. So, cheers to corporate greed, I guess. Now, most of us know or use coffee specifically for the caffeine in it. So, what is caffeine exactly? It's a psychostimulant/psychoactive drug, which is anything that affects your brain by changing things like mood, awareness, behavior, thoughts, or feelings. Other such psychoactives are nicotine, alcohol, and marijuana. But how does caffeine specifically work? Well, TLDR, caffeine doesn't actually give you energy. Well, it can give you a bit of focus, but the reason you really feel that boost of energy is that caffeine prevents your brain from absorbing adenosine, the chemical responsible for making you sleepy. At this point, you may be wondering, is coffee healthy for me? Well, lucky for you, I had a chat with Marilyn Cornelis, an associate professor at Northwestern who studies caffeine.
What's cool about coffee is that it's one of the major contributors of this key polyphenol, which we call chlorogenic acid.
Now, you might not have heard of polyphenols or chlorogenic acid before, but you probably have heard of the more commonly used name, antioxidants. See, just living your life exposes you to oxidative stress, which breaks down the cells in your body over time. Antioxidants are molecules that counteract oxidative stress and slow down cell damage. And guess what? Coffee's chock full of them.
And it's been linked to benefits on stabilizing your blood sugar or your glucose levels. And that's possibly one way in which coffee reduces risk of diabetes.
But that's not all. There's research showing that polyphenols in coffee can help improve your cardiovascular and neurological health, reduce risk of certain types of cancer, and even help protect you from Parkinson's disease.
One of the strongest relationships for disease outcomes has been the protective role that coffee has in Parkinson's disease. There's experimental, so animal studies and human studies suggesting that it's actually the caffeine that's contributing to the reduced risk.
Okay, cool. But I have the attention span of a goldfish, so does this mean coffee is healthy or not?
In my opinion, coffee, if we don't add a lot of sugar and fun stuff that you can find, say, in your typical Starbucks, I would say a lot of the literature suggests it's beneficial.
Yes, black coffee all the way. That bitter stuff that puts hair on your chest. Not your iced matcha latte from Starbucks that you make the intern get for you every day. So now we can get out there and start cleaning out every coffee house that stands before us. Well, hold your horses, cowboy. Yes, coffee is healthy for most people. But if you're under 18, things might actually be a little different. There's not actually a lot of research on the effects of caffeine on developing brains. So to be safe, follow these guidelines from doctors. Now, all that being said, we don't exactly go to coffee for the health benefits, do we? Remember earlier when we were talking about how work culture helped boom the popularity of coffee? Well, how many times have you yourself had to resort to coffee to get through your workday or finish a project on time? I mean, speaking from my experience, there have been times where I get to work at 4 a.m. and I get to leave until 2 a.m. the next day. Why? Because I had to finish the job and it was low-key expected that I would stay until the project was finished. How did I get through those days? The bean nectar, of course. It became a regular thing, needing to have coffee every single day to function. It's that kind of unhealthy relationship with caffeine that has some people worried that it can be addictive. If you consume too much, you can get jitteriness, heart palpitations, anxiety, and even worse, anxiety attacks. And if you eventually try to wean yourself off the bean, like I once did, you can actually experience withdrawal symptoms like headaches, tiredness, and irritability. It's all thanks to those dang adenosine receptors we were talking about earlier.
Because we've been consuming caffeine, those adenosine receptors, they become upregulated, so they're expressed more highly. And when you suddenly abstain from caffeine, these receptors are all very, very sensitive now. So then we get kind of almost a rebound effects with no caffeine. We suddenly get very sluggish and tired.
However, caffeine is typically classified as a dependence, not an addiction. For a drug to be considered addictive, it must activate the brain's reward circuit. Caffeine does tap into it, but not to the same level of other drugs like cocaine or nicotine.
And so I think by adding caffeine to that mix, it kind of trivializes the real addictive nature of those other compounds. And we do know that caffeine is so widely available that to start calling it an addictive drug could really freak people out.
So drinking coffee and consuming caffeine isn't inherently bad for you. In many cases, it's actually great. So what determines whether or not it's healthy for you specifically is actually more determined by your own personal health and your relationship with it. But for real, don't forget to ask yourself if you really need that next cup or if there's something else in your life that needs to change. Now, we want to hear from you. What's your relationship like with coffee or caffeine? And have you ever considered cutting it out? Let us know in the comments. Man, it's good to be in this chair.
Yeah, man, get up out of here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You're so kind. I love having an intern.